At 7 o'clock, I'll call the meeting to order. This is a meeting of the Town of Norton Zoning Board of Appeals, Wednesday night, August 19, 2020. We are appearing via teleconference due to the emergency COVID-19 orders in effect in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and in the Town of Norton. We have with us tonight all the members of the zoning board, Alan Booley, Jim Tenore, myself, and where did David Wren? There he is. Also with us is Paul DiGiuseppe, who is our planning and zoning director for the Town of Norton. And I see Nicole Salvo here as well, who is our assistant and go-to person. We have a number of items on the agenda. I'll start in. First, however, I'll note, just for anybody who might be here for this purpose, on our agenda tonight, though I'm not sure what we were going to do with it, was the 40B application concerning 253 Mansfield Ave, the applicant being 253 Reservoir LLC. They have asked for a continuance tonight. We'll get to it when it's on the agenda. I'm just letting people know ahead of time in case anybody's here just tuning in or attending for that matter. We'll have Mr. DiGiuseppe explain communications we received, and then we'll likely continue that to at least the next meeting. But just in case anyone's here just for 253 Reservoir, we are probably going to be continuing that to our next meeting in September. The first listed meeting item on the agenda is the matter concerning 157 Mansfield Ave. The applicant is the Norton Mobile Home Park. The applicant is seeking an appeal of the building inspector's decision regarding replacement of 2 mobile homes in that park. Paul, I understand that they are seeking a continuance, and in fact, do you have a communication on that one or no? I'm not sure.
We do. The applicant has also submitted a variance application for the entire mobile home park. And so that came in a week ago, so we weren't able to get it on tonight. And the applicant has stated they'd like to take both the appeal and the variance together. And we've asked town council to look at that, the variance and appeal, to see can they do what they're proposing. And council had some questions today that I need to follow up on with the applicant regarding their variance request for the entire mobile home park. What exactly are they seeking a variance to?
Okay, so the materials that we had in the folder may or may not go forward as they are there, because we got a new submittal in on that same property, right?
Correct.
Okay, and I think
they want to go forward with both.
Okay, well, we can ask Amy, right? And I think I saw part of that email communication with Amy and confused it for something else. So I know what you're referring to, but we can talk about that. We'll schedule that probably for the next meeting. When is our meeting in September?
You need to set it.
I thought we did. Okay.
If you can set a few months, that would be great.
Yeah, let's do that now if we could, folks. That means you. 4 weeks from tonight is 16th. 16th of the 23rd are the Wednesdays in the middle to end of the month. I'm not sure if either is better for anybody. I would pick the 23rd simply because it's an extra week. It's toward the end of the month. The beginning of September is a little busy sometime. But preferences, or Paul, guidance?
Great. I said either one for me is fine.
Okay.
That
David?
September.
Go ahead, Alan.
Sorry, that week of the 14th, 15th, I believe school starts right then. So that might just be a reason to go to that following week.
Yeah, that's probably, I concur. David, are you okay with the 23rd?
No, actually, I'm not. I'm on vacation that whole week.
Okay. Then it's either the 16th or the 30th. Paul, do we have other things coming up? I mean, in the hopper, do you know?
Well, we do have we have one other application that you all have, but I think we would be fine in terms of the 60-day requirement.
Okay. And
Ones that I'll need to notice for, just as a heads up.
Yeah, we haven't had a chance to notice those since we didn't have a September date,
yeah, of course, right.
but we will get them out by early
Okay.
next week.
I see a couple other participants in the 40B matters. Judy Barrett, Peter Freeman. Do you have a feeling as to either the 16th or the 30th?
I believe that I'm available both. I don't know if my team members are. We probably, unless something comes up that means we need more time, I think we probably prefer September 16th because, it's just a sooner date.
Yeah.
We have had, one peer review submitted. I know the traffic peer review will have to come.
Judy? Your mic's off, sorry.
Yeah, sorry. I'm just checking my calendar. Again, the 16th or the 23rd are the choices. Is that what you
The
said?
16th or the 30th. But the 16th may be better. That's 4 weeks from tonight.
The 30th. Okay. I may not be able to. I have kind of a penciled in that night, but if that other commitment goes away, then I'll be available on the 16th. I am open on the 30th.
Okay.
Okay.
I think we should probably try to keep things moving. Alan, is there a particular problem with that week, even if it is first school week?
Negative, just was pointing it out.
Why don't we take the 16th and put that down, Paul, for September?
Okay.
Great. And then you want to look to October 14th, 21st. Doesn't matter to me.
I'm open either one.
They would be good.
Sorry, Peter?
Either date in October is fine.
I think for me, either one probably is okay. Let me just check real quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, looks okay to me.
Mr. Chairman, the only night I know I cannot make in October is the 21st.
Okay, let's do the 14th,
Okay. Thank you.
October. Yeah. All right, let's try to move along with those dates. We can maybe talk about another date or two after at the end of the meeting. We can have as many people here. So is there a motion to continue the application for 157 Mansfield Ave in Norton Mobile Home Park to the next scheduled meeting in September on the 16th?
I would make the motion, Mr. Chairman, to move the matter to the September 16th at 7 o'clock.
Sure. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. Chinori seconds. Have to do a roll call vote. Mr. Wren, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Mr. Chinori?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Okay. 16th of September at 7 p.m. for 157. Thank you. Next is a hearing that we've continued. It started in February, I think, at our February meeting. Property address is 15 Hawthorne. The applicant owner, Brian and Sue Redmond. Is there a motion to take that from the table for consideration tonight?
I will make a motion to take 15 Hawthorne Road to the table tonight.
Jim will second.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor. David, how do you vote?
Oh, yes.
Mr. Chinori, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Newell votes yes as well. Question, Paul, there are other names here on the screen. I don't see the Redmonds by name, but of course it's possible they're under another name. Do you know if they are in attendance tonight, or is there anybody in attendance who would speak up now and identify themselves on this matter?
I wasn't aware that he was going to attend tonight.
The last communication was we received, I think on Monday or perhaps over the weekend, was a packet of materials from Mr. Redmond. I think the members all got that. can I suggest administratively that we hold that till the end of our meeting tonight? Well, till after the next items, to see if anybody joins in for the applicant, Mr. or Ms. Redmond, and we can take it up after we have our 40B matter, which is next on the list. Is that okay with folks?
I'd be okay with that.
Okay.
Okay.
One last call. Is there anybody here to speak for the applicant, the Redmonds, for 15 Hawthorne, the application that is on the agenda? Okay, I'm going to, at chairman's call, I'm just going to delay that till after our 40B hearing tonight, and we'll take it up again. Paul, just be aware if you see other people on the screen that, come in, we can catch them and explain what's going on, just in case, okay?
Okay.
And thanks. So it is 7:10. We've wasted 10 minutes already, but we are on time because we have to go by the agenda. 7:10, the continued public hearing, 40B comprehensive permit, property address 195 Mansfield Ave. The applicant owner, AR Building, the owner is the Gus Nominee Trust. The applicant is seeking to construct a 100-unit rental apartment building, including 25 affordable housing units pursuant to the Chapter 40B laws and regulations. And I believe, we have Judy Barrett here to assist us tonight. I see. Thank you, Ms. Barrett. And I believe, Mr. Freeman, this is your lead. I'll just ask, first of all, we have a few new pieces of material, I think, and I'd like to make sure we have those in mind and go through them. I have a Decreed Engineering August 3 letter. That is from your team, Mr. Freeman, right?
Correct.
Yep. And then just today, we got from Amory Engineers a permit review. It's dated August 19. Paul, that is...
Yes, and in fact, Pat Brennan's on the call from Amory, and this is the review he did on the engineering and the stormwater. Traffic is not submitted yet, but it'll be at the next, we assume, the next meeting. So Pat's here to talk about the peer review whenever you get to that point.
And Mr. Brennan is our peer review consultant on certain issues, correct?
Correct.
I see Mr. Brennan here. Thank you. Okay, do we have other? Yes, we have a 180-page report from the applicant as well. Is that right? A new traffic report?
Yes, that's the complete traffic report.
Was there a partial the first meeting, or is this supplementing some questions we had explained, Peter? And you can go ahead and continue.
Two-part answer, the last part first. We do have a supplement. Scott Thornton from Vanas Associates is here, and we'll have him tell you the updates, which included your suggestion, the board's suggestion, to expand the study area down to Route 123 traffic light. So he'll report on that. And Scott, or anybody else, please correct me, but I believe that we had a complete presentation of the traffic assessment orally by Scott at the last hearing, but the entire, as you just pointed out, lengthy report or assessment was not submitted. So and since there hasn't been traffic peer review yet, we thought, at least my discussion with Paul P. Giuseppe indicated that it would make sense not to have, repeat of going through the whole report, but just the supplementary expanded study area. If that's
fine. And with the explanation, I just wanted to see what was new here. Why don't you continue on, Mr. Freeman, as you wish, introducing who you wish to address the board. Unless members, are there any other procedural questions for the applicant first? No, seeing none. Peter, go right ahead.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. For the record, Peter Freeman, representing the applicant. And we do have our team here tonight. So the first thing we thought we'd do is just have Brandon Carr from Decreed, who wrote the August 3rd letter. It was a response letter to the questions that came up at the ZBA hearing. We got the peer review, which is actually very quick. We appreciate that on the part of Amory and Pat Brennan. I don't know if Brandon or anybody else on our team is going to say anything about the peer review. We did look at it naturally, but of course we'll be, fully for the next hearing on that. But the first thing is we'll have Brandon do what I just said, And then the next thing we would have, I believe, Jeff Campbell, our architect who's here, he did, I don't know that it's submitted, but I believe he can show it on the screen, something related to your question of height, because we wanted to address that. And then Scott Thornton, as I said, will tell you the result of his study of that intersection down at Route 123. And then Jason Kambitsis, the director, project manager, director from the applicant, they are builders, will sum up and, answer any other questions, and that would do it. So, Brandon, you might as well go forward.
Good evening, everyone. Brandon Carr with DePreet Engineering. And as Peter said, we submitted a letter, that's the August 3rd letter that was referenced in response to some of the questions that came up at the last meeting and some of the questions that the planning staff had on the initial submission. And we haven't made any revisions to the plan. So as I go through these, I'm kind of going to explain how we're going to address the comments. But what we thought we would do was wait for, we know we're getting a peer review done, which we got today. We were waiting for those comments too. And then we will revise everything, based on those, based on our initial responses and based on anything that comes out of tonight instead of kind of piecemealing it. So I'll just kind of quickly go through, I think there were about 13 or 14 items that we responded to, and I'll share the site plans here so I can kind of reference things.
Yep, thank you. We just got the peer review today too, and I haven't had a chance, I've been working and had a chance to dig into that either, so.
I'm on vacation, so I didn't get to really dig into it much, but I did read it right before the meeting a couple times, and I don't see, just in general on the peer review, it's I don't see any major obstacles that we can't work with the peer reviewer and address, and nothing really jumped out at me as a problem. So we'll be addressing those, and we can coordinate with the peer reviewer as we go through that. So I know at last meeting we talked about the amount of parking on the site. We, just for reference, I think the requirement was around 191 spaces, 190 spaces or so. We were proposing 179, which was below the requirement. So we were actually asking for a waiver on parking. And in discussion with this board, and we kind of concurrently going through the Conservation Commission process as well. I think the applicant's comfortable with reducing the parking. So we're gonna remove about 20 spaces. So it'll be from this back parking area. So we'll be able to basically just kind of chop them out from here. So you can see that there's about 6 rows. So maybe 3 or 4 rows, which would, bring this edge in, 30 to 40 feet, basically keep the pond where it is, reduce the impervious. And then, we were eyeing the area that this would create, this flat area back here, for more area for open space recreation for the residents. That came up both, I think, at this board and at conservation. So when we do revise the plans in response to these comments in the peer review, we are going to reduce the amount of parking in this back parking area. But for the most part, the site design would stay the same. It would just be kind of shrinking this back parking area.
Okay.
There was a discussion about a connection between our development and the shopping center to the south, and I think there was some kind of conflicting language in our narrative and then our response letter. So we are going to look into basically it would have to be out in the Mass DOT right away, and we did discuss it with Mass DOT. We met with them. I think it was over a year ago at this point. It was when we were very early on in the project, and we did discuss a sidewalk connection at least to the property line here or down to the shopping center. And basically the way we said was we'd address it when we went back to Mass DOT. The main issue with a sidewalk in the right of way here is there's several utility poles and trees, especially kind of right where our property ends here on the southern end of our property. There's a utility pole, 2 utility poles that are kind of about 3 or 4 feet off the curb line. So, naturally your sidewalk would want to be along the curb. And then there's a few trees, and I should have brought up the street view. But basically on the sidewalk, we're going to study it further and see what makes sense for the best way to approach that. So, We don't have a full response to that question yet. There was some discussion about connecting kind of internally to the back of the shopping center here, and we don't want to pursue that option just because, the likelihood of the shopping center probably continuing that sidewalk into their development would be probably minimal just because of the cost. And so we didn't want to propose a sidewalk that kind of dumped people into the back here.
Can I ask something?
Sure.
And other members too, and Judy, of course, speak up if you have questions. But just a question: when we say shopping center, does that include McDonald's?
Yes, it's the Roach Brothers, the McDonald's, it's that whole plaza there.
Okay, so I'm not sure how to phrase this. Is the McDonald's land owned by the shopping center owner, or does McDonald's own its own land?
It's all one owner, the entire.
It's the shopping center
Yeah.
owner. McDonald's must lease it.
It's Tom, it's Gator Properties. They own all of that, including the McDonald's.
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
Who makes that decision? I would think McDonald's might like a sidewalk there, but go ahead. I understand.
The next question we responded to was a question about why the building was had this angular shift or kind of kink in the middle here. And I'll probably let Jeff handle that when he speaks about his issues. But basically, if he wants to build on this further later on, but I'll do my best. Basically, what we wanted to do was we wanted to break up this building, and so it didn't appear as one long building. You'll see that, AR and art, the architect's buildings, they have a lot of kind of relief on the sides, their balconies and things kind of undulate in and out, and it helps to break down that mass. So that was one reason why we were kind of breaking this building up. If we remember when we presented, we showed the floor plans, a lot of the common areas, the amenities, the pool, it's all in the center of the building. But it also helped us transition that grade. So you'll remember this northern side of the site is higher by 1 story than this, the lower level. So this lower level has one more exposed floor. And by kind of angling that, it just helps us absorb that grade of the site more, because the natural high point on the site, the existing high point, is up here. So it kind of lets us wrap into that high point and minimize our cuts and fills. That kind of goes into another question I'm going to skip ahead to, but asking about why we had this kind of drop off area and this looped area. And that was it was a similar reason. It with the main entry here and those amenities and kind of the common area of the building in the center, we wanted to kind of have a destination, an arrival point here. Basically, it would kind of allow people to come in the site and drop off without impeding the traffic through to the back of the site. And also it would allow, if you were dropping somebody off, or the mailman and things like that, it would allow them to enter the site and then loop back out to to Mansfield Avenue. So they wouldn't have to drive fully around the building if they were dropping somebody off, or perform a 3-point turn, but it basically kind of acts as like a loop turnaround there. Another question was on the transformer location, and just to throw it out there, developers generally suggest where the transformer goes, and then when National Grid gets involved, they a lot of times tell you where it goes. So we always kind of fight that battle between putting it somewhere where it's, you've seen them, they're large, they're not ideal to have in front of a building, they're not ideal to have at your front door. National Grid, if they could have their way, they put it right at your driveway. So they want it as close to the street as accessible as possible. So it's kind of kind of back and forth between us and National Grid. We thought that this location worked because it gives them the access. They can drive up here and access the transformer. But again, it also works with that grade change. So we're sloping down about 10 feet from the main entrance here to when you get around the back corner. So it kind of creates a natural hill, you can imagine here. And by tucking that, we thought, accessible from the lower level and tucking it into that hillside, and we'd be able to screen it well so that from Mansfield Avenue and from kind of the main entrance here, you wouldn't drive in and that, transformer wouldn't be right in your face. So that was kind of why we're trying to put it up here. Also, National Grid, generally likes it. Well, they require it in front of the site. So you can't hide them in the back of your site anymore. So, when we looked at it and we said, all right, it's got to be up in this kind of quadrant of the site anyways, where can we put it to minimize the grade? And that's something that we'll be working with them, like I said, to kind of, find out the best spot for it. There's a question on access points, and we'll clarify that on the plan, but basically the main access is in the front here, and then there's a door on the back and a couple of doors, I believe, on this lower level on the back side. Some clarification on some of the waivers we asked for about the landscape buffer. There's a requirement that the landscape buffer is based off of in the zoning regulations, it's based off of the front building setback, which in this case, I believe is 50 feet. And I think the waiver request is something like, it's 1/3 of the distance of the building. So it would be, the required setback would be 16.7 feet. We're asking for a 5 foot. So the difference would be 11.5 feet. We'll clarify that calculation on the plans and just clarify, but the reasoning on that was we wanted to keep the building close to Mansfield Avenue to have a presence on the road and not just have, a lot of parking and things in the front. And that's why we tucked the parking in the back, but also the right of way in this area is fairly wide. So, we felt by having that smaller buffer was acceptable, and, having the vegetated plants here, a hedgerow and the trees with that wider, right of way would allow us to have, proper screening, but still have the building have a presence on the road. So we'll clarify that in the waiver request when we resubmit. There was some other clarification that we'll add to the waivers about some of the trees, spacing. There was a question, and it got brought up by the abutter to the north here about, we discussed, if you remember, our property doesn't actually abut the reservoir. There's our property ends, and then the mobile home park property extends between the reservoir and us. So we don't have direct access to the reservoir. So at the last meeting, the abutter to the north had a question, and he had reached out to us previously about just being concerned about our residents using his property to access the reservoir. So what we're going to propose is a solid fence along the northern property line to either the 100-foot or the 50-foot buffer. We have to work that out with conservation, but basically they won't allow a fence to go right down to the wetland edge, because a solid fence, because it impedes, species and different things. So we're going to propose a fence along this northern property to either the 100-foot or the 50-foot buffer, a solid fence. And then from that point on, we would propose along the back of our pond here, a split rail fence. And that would be an effort in, we might put it up at the top of the pond. We kind of, the final placement of that is still, being discussed, but most likely it would be, solid fence along this northern property line to the front of the pond, and then a split rail along the back here. And that would keep our residents, on the kind of building side of the pond, and that would keep them out of our pond and also keep them out of, proceeding into the woods and the reservoir. And we can do more with signage and, agreements in their lease documents to say they can't, there's no access to the reservoir. We can, address that from more of a management standpoint too. But we are proposing a solid fence along the northern property line, and then a split rail fence, and that would still allow the views to the reservoir, but, hopefully limit that access.
Yep.
Couple questions on some of the waivers again, and then on the signage. And there was a question if the signage was going to meet the requirement, and we'll provide a full. We provide kind of a generic or a rough sign detail, but all we would propose for a sign is a small monument sign up here at the entrance, and it would meet the town regulations. So we wouldn't be asking for any relief on signage. It'd be a low, kind of a monument sign, not your tall pylon sign that you see at shopping centers, but something just low that has the address of the building and the name of the development. Then the last one, I believe, the last one here was why we were requesting a waiver from the town of Norton stormwater management bylaws. And as we discussed, I think at the last meeting, we definitely discussed it at conservation. We are meeting all the metrics that they measure, the TSS removal, the treatment levels, the flows of the regulation of the stormwater management bylaw. But there's some language in there that's kind of subjective. It's, to the maximum extent possible and we were just asking for a waiver from those regulations, almost out of an abundance of caution. So, we believe, and I know the peer reviewer did comment on a couple of the stormwater, aspects and clarification that we need to show. But, our intention is to meet the requirements of the bylaw. I was just asking for a waiver just because of some of that kind of subjective language. And that was discussed with the Conservation Commission as well. And I know they're doing their own peer review on the stormwater design too. So, we'll be coordinating that peer review with the ZBA's peer review and in our revision. So, our intention is to meet the bylaw. So,
Okay.
that was the overview of my letter. I think we wanted to flip it to Jeff to discuss some of the height issues of the buildings. Unless Peter, you had any more?
I'm sorry, let me stop you first. And thank you, Mr. Carr. For somebody on vacation, you did really well. Even for somebody not on vacation. You did.
Thank you.
Members, are there questions, or Judy, are there questions for Mr. Carr at this point, or should we go further?
I don't have any questions at this time. I probably will later, but that was fine. It was good.
Members?
Good. I got anything, Mr. Chairman?
Okay, thanks. Just, I vote yes for sidewalks. I think it would be a real plus to getting this done, connecting to, and I don't know the legalities. I'm not asking heaven and earth be moved. I'm just suggesting that connecting a residential to a shopping center that needs business and vice versa would be a very positive thing. I think that the board would look upon very positively. I don't know the legalities at all. In fact, one question, whether or not not pinning you down, does the sidewalk have to be put on private property, or is that in the right of way? Does the state ever say, yeah, you can use so much of this right of way for a sidewalk?
Yeah, the sidewalk would be in the state right away.
It would all be.
Yes, it would all be. And from where it connects at our driveway. So it would basically run along the edge of the road here.
Oh.
Out there right away. So it would have to be, that's why it has to be approved by Mass DOT, and, any impacts or any issues with existing utilities or some of the traffic signal equipment or anything that happens to be in the right of way has to be, taken into account and coordinated and approved by them.
Then why, so you're suggesting there would be an expense to the neighboring landowner, the shopping center owner, because they would have to fund it even though it wouldn't, or somebody would have to fund it. That's what you were saying, correct?
Well, and that's what, that's one of the issues too, is if we were to create a sidewalk here along our frontage, there's still several hundred feet in front of the shopping center to get to their entrance. So, any connection past our property line, or any connection into their development would have to be coordinated with them.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
the thought, I'd like to keep the thought alive, but thank you.
And we'll definitely continue to keep looking into it.
Thank you for that info.
And Chair, if I can just, add to that.
Yeah.
Well, first, your question about the, putting sidewalks in right of way. I mean, right of way, that's pretty typical. Sometimes you don't have sufficient right of way, and then a private property owner has to put the sidewalk on their property. But right of way is there to reserve space for public infrastructure. So, by putting it in the right of way, that's perfectly fine. I would also say I understand, where Brandon's coming from as far as the owner of the other of Great Woods. But having walked this site, it's certainly when you cross into the property here, that's right around the McDonald's. While it's not ideal, it still is a relatively safe crossing. for a pedestrian to come in that way. There's not a whole lot of traffic in that area. So I think the bigger issue is getting people off the dirt strip that, runs not just on this property, but throughout much of Mansfield Avenue.
Well, that's what I was thinking, that, if we're doing this section, improving that up to some standard would sure make things look a lot better, at least for that little stretch. But it's something we can look at and talk about. I'd also, I don't know, is state or federal funding available for something like that? Just throwing it out there. And I know we can ask the applicant to do certain things also, but just keeping that alive, as I said.
We could certainly be looking at putting it in a future transportation improvement program for this area, which is a state funded. We could also look at some other funding sources as well.
But go ahead, Mr. Carr, you were going to throw it to.
Jeff, I believe you want me to bring up the height?
If you want to just stop sharing, I can share mine.
Okay.
Other images.
Thank you, Mr. Carr.
No, thank you.
And now we have Jeff Campbell.
Yes. So can I?
Just for the record and to remind folks, your role, your function is.
Yeah, my name is Jeff Campbell. I'm an architect and a principal with Rothschild Doino Collaborative, and we do the architecture for AR building.
Thank you.
Is my screen sharing at the moment?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe before I jumped into the height, I just wanted to pick up on a couple loose ends from Brandon, although I think he did a great job. One was the actual building entrances, and here, this is a slightly earlier graphic, so the site plan is slightly different. But you can see where the primary stairs are on either end of the building, and then we do have access throughout the middle of the building as well. So those are the primary building points. And then, the second one was, why do we have that crook in it? And I think, Brandon did a really good job describing that. We actually, when we first appeared to the Board of Selectmen and showed this as a concept, we actually didn't have that crook. It was a straight building, and to be honest, it always kind of bothered us. AR really likes to create a community here, and not just have apartments that people come in and don't stick around. We really wanted to create a sense of place. And what we found is with that single bar building, if you will, it had very little frontage on the street. It really didn't announce the front door. It was challenging with the cross grade that we had along the street as well. So we were really trying to create more of
The recording, this meeting is being recorded.
And the other issue here was that we really wanted to add an outdoor recreation area. So what we had done is we kind of worked with the site, because the site itself has a little crook to it. Use that to really create two facades, one that would create an entrance that actually would be visible from the street, especially right as you drove in. It would be the first thing you'd see, create a nice area for a drop-off zone. And then that actually also created a nice area on the south side that allowed us to make a pool. And when we looked at those buildings, we actually created a really nice opportunity here where you can come in. We have a waiting, general office, leasing area as you come in, a mail area to kind of pick up things, but then a two-story, very nice community space in the center of the building that would open up into the pool here. So we have a commons down in the ground floor that would be meant for to be a shared space, and then the pool off to the right here. So that was just kind of following up on what Brandon was saying earlier and why we had done that crook. The second thing was, the one thing, my definite architectural takeaway from the last meeting was trying to understand why we were requesting a waiver on the height. This is a very challenging site, and so this is a graphic that hopefully isn't too complicated, but tries to talk about why this is such a challenging site to develop architecturally. And really, it has a lot to do with this long, skinny nature of it. What we have here is we're showing the general site. The red line is the traditionally developable area. That's basically using the setbacks on the left, top, and bottom of the page, and then on the right of the page, having that as a setback with the buffer zone from the wetland area. There's also grading that we've talked about in there, and then some of the other wetland concerns, which really restricts us off on the right side. We also need to get circulation around the building. So we want to get when we're doing these buildings, you don't want to put a parking lot off to one side, because what that means is that some of your residents have to end up walking the length of the parking lot and then the length of the building in order to get to their home. So we try to distribute some of that parking. We also have circulation. We want to make sure that we're getting vehicles traveling all the way around. We also have the fire department access. It's a big thing there. Once you start to factor in the idea that you need some parking, the idea that you need some buffer between the apartment building itself, you really end up with a very skinny area. Sometimes you could travel off to the right when you're trying to do that, but we don't have that opportunity either. So it really gives us a zone here that is pretty limited when you look at it in comparison to the overall zone. So that really ended up, for us to make the building work and make it feasible, we had to add that extra story. And that's where we basically ended up, the requirement is 3 stories, we're asking for 4. The other one is the height, and I think this next page that talks about this, and I've not submitted these yet, but I'd be happy to, is a relatively wordy page, but I just want to call out a couple highlights. The left side kind of talks about the building code definitions of height, which aren't really germane to us here. But the right side talks about the zoning code definition. Right now, the zoning code defines the limit of the building height at 45 feet. We're proposing, by definition of building height, ours is 62'8". However, the zoning code is also measured to the highest point of the building from the average ground level. That's, I won't say it's atypical because you do see it in some municipalities, but the more traditional approach is the highest point of the building when you have a flat roof. When you have a gable roof, it's typically to the midpoint. And then a mansard roof also has a deck line. And what that really does is it recognizes that those roof forms have very different appearances from the street. So, if there was a limit of 45 feet, a flat roof at 45 feet would appear much taller than a gabled roof would at 45 feet. Not that this has real precedent, but I just kind of looked around some of the neighboring, Attleboro, Mansfield, Taunton, and Easton all have this modified definition, which actually takes into consideration the gable itself. So, if we were to go with just a straight flat roof on this, we feel we could actually get a 47'6" roof. And that's, right now it's a 3-story, 45 feet. We feel like we could, if we forced it, we could get 4-story, 47'6". But in order to kind of make this building a little more contextual and a little more residential in nature, we'd like to go with the gable here. Unfortunately, because of the way the zoning code reads, that gable really does make that difference seem a lot more significant than it would really be perceived from the street. So here you can kind of see, we kind of broke down some of those numbers. The 45 feet is where the limit would be at this black dashed line. The red line is, we think just using typical constructions, AR as an amenity likes to get a little bit of extra height, so not just a flat 8-foot ceiling. We try to hit 8'6" sometimes if we can. And then, just people respond very well to that. And then we have this gable here, which is really what's driving that. But as you can imagine, if you're looking at this directly, from the street, you don't necessarily read that full height. So those are, I'm happy to more detail.
Hey, 1 second.
I'm sorry.
Jim, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So let me ask you, again, because I'm just seeing this for the first time, but if you dropped it down 1 level, it almost looks like you would stay, even with that roof line the way you want it, you'd be under, and it's tough to tell. Again, I'm just looking at this for the first time. If you dropped it down a level, you would be under your 45 feet.
So you're saying if we eliminated a floor?
Yeah, if you eliminated the top level.
So if we eliminated a floor, our typical floor to floor is 10 feet. So if we eliminated it, we would be at 52'8" instead of 6.
All right, so you'd still be over. Okay.
That would reduce what number of units to just for?
Roughly 22, I think.
It's not the same every floor, right?
I'm sorry, say that again?
It's not the same number on every floor, right?
No, it's not. There's some subtle differences. And we have sort of a half story on the bottom floor, but I want to say it's around 22, 23.
Another question, I guess for the board and for Paul, what is the apartments next to Red Mill Village? Wasn't there a height issue there as well? And an exception. I don't mean to put anybody on the spot. I mean, I'm not remembering either. we can look that up, obviously, to see the waiver there.
I'll have to look at 274.
Yeah,
Main.
same. I'm just bringing it up. Maybe we can look at that, between now and the next meeting. I think, I don't remember what height that is, but I think there was a waiver there too. Go ahead.
And that really, that kind of gives our justification on why we had gone to the height. So I can wrap it there. Maybe give it back to Peter, or if Jason had any comments.
Yep, unless there's any more questions from the board at this point, then I think our next brief presentation, and that would be, and then Jason, I almost forgot, sorry, Jason, but Scott on the expanded study on the traffic.
Thank you, Peter. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, good evening. Scott Thornton with Vanessa and Associates. We prepared the initial traffic assessment for the project. And as Attorney Freeman mentioned, I went through an overview of the traffic study at the last meeting. And at that point, there was a request from the board to add an intersection further to the south of the project. And that's the intersection of Route 123 and Route 140. And I'm going to try to share my screen.
Forgive us for not printing out the whole 188 pages. At least I didn't.
Save a tree.
I read some of it. I couldn't get through the whole thing.
Reading and printing it is
Right.
two different things.
It's good nighttime reading.
Okay.
Put you right out. So I won't be long. I just want to give you an idea of what we found with the addition of the intersection of 123 and 140. So as you can see on this study area map, the intersection is located about 1.5 miles to the south. And it's the intersection of West Main Street and Taunton Avenue with Mansfield Avenue. It's sort of an offset four-way intersection. Paul DiGiuseppe had provided some information related to the Cumberland Farms traffic study or supplemental traffic study that had done traffic counts and analyzed that intersection. Their counts were from November of last year. So we were able to take that data, modify it, bring it up to 2020 conditions, and use that to further distribute our traffic further down 140 into the intersection, identify the impacts. In terms of, I gave you a brief overview of the intersections that were in the initial study area. In terms of this intersection, the peak hours out there are in the morning between 7:15 and 8:15, and in the evening between 4 p.m. and 5 p.m. Whereas further to the north on 140, the peak hours are in the 7 to 8 range, and either 4 to 5 or 5 to 6. They're pretty the volumes are pretty consistent between 4 p.m. and 6 p.m. But in terms of the analysis, so as I mentioned, we added the intersection of 140, 123, collected that volume data from the Cumberland Farms project. We looked at the crash history at that intersection, and it was also, like the other locations, was found to be below the state average crash rates for intersections. Therefore, the crash rates at all the intersections in the study area would not be considered significant. In terms of a project traffic increase at this location, we're looking at adding between 13 and 18 trips to the intersection, and that's total entering and exiting. And it's about evenly split. So it's about 6 trips headed southbound in the morning, and about 7 trips headed northbound, and similar splits in the evening time period. But in terms of an overall traffic increase, it's a 0.6% increase in the morning peak hour and a 0.7% increase during the evening peak hour. And when we put that in with the analysis, it comes up the project traffic increase results in about a 1 second increase to the overall delay at the intersection during those time periods. So we, as you mentioned, Mr. Chairman, we sent you a nice 180-page report right off of the books, or right off the printer. So we'll look forward to getting peer review comments on that traffic study and working with your peer review consultant for traffic. That's all I have. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Jim, you had spoken up last meeting about the 123 edition, I think.
No, I mean, I think he answered the question. I'd like to review the larger document in its entirety. But right now, I think he answered what we asked.
Yep, agreed. Thank you for that, Mr. Thornton. And also, I mean, that's where peer review really helps out, Jim.
Yep.
You know, we'll get sort of a focused review of certain provisions, hopefully for the next meeting. And so, you know, we can read this and we can hopefully have a peer review to, you know, focus us in on what the peer reviewer thinks about this as well.
Sure.
So thank you. Any other questions, members or Judy? Okay, thank you, Mr. Thornton.
You're welcome. And I'll turn it over to Jason.
Go right ahead.
Hey, everybody.
Hi, good evening.
How you doing? Yeah, I mean, not much to add here. I mean, I think everybody's kind of hit all the parts here. Again, I'm Jason Campbell, Senior Vice President, Acquisitions and Development for AR Building. You know, again, we're just kind of moving through the process. You know, I think this process a little long because of what's been going on, not only with the virus, but also the process itself has been a great one. Town's been great to work with, and I appreciate you guys making the time to do this. I think this process has been fair and helpful, and we're here to help answer any questions. And I'm just here to say thanks, and you know, anything else you want to know, I'm happy to help. Happy to answer anything. So.
Board members, questions?
I don't think I have anything.
David?
I don't think I have any.
Okay. Mr. Kembis, back to the sidewalk, sorry. Do we know, was the shopping center owner approached about this or spoken to about this?
Yeah, we can talk to them. I mean, we can do that. I mean, for us, and I'll just tell you, we'll happily talk with them. We'll go through that process. I don't want us to be beholden to if somebody else doesn't want us to put a sidewalk coming into their property. I'll be open about that. We've had that in the past, and you know, it's kind of like if you build a sidewalk up to your neighbor's property, you know, then what happens? But we haven't approached them yet. We'll talk with them. That's not a problem. We can do that and let you know.
Just curious as to whether it did happen already. I didn't know if the comment.
But I'm happy to have that call.
Because the plaza, as you know, I'm sure better than any of us, you know, just lost its anchor tenant and may or may not be interested in sprucing itself up. That's all. Just throwing it out there again.
Okay.
I'm also a fan of not having it cut through the back of that shopping plaza in my line of work. I could see how that could be a problem for everyone involved.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know where they get to in the back of the plaza anyway. It's the back of the plaza, right? So
They don't. It would just lead to problems for the town, for everybody.
it would have to be, you know, between the McDonald's and the plaza, some sort of sidewalk there, and that doesn't make any further sense. I agree, Jim. For a side entrance or something like that, I don't see how that would.
You know, I think back on the neighbors' questions regarding people going to the reservoir and all that kind of stuff, and I think he doesn't want our tenants going there. And then I have a hesitation of putting something there, just for that reason, people then wandering onto the property and trying to get through and thinking that's a way to get in there too. And then, you know, then what happens? I think that leads to a lot more problems. I think when we look at the front entrance area, on Mansfield Avenue and working that's a much cleaner approach just because of, it's in the right of way. I'm sure we can figure something out there, and I think that's easier for everybody. So I think we're going to continue to look at that.
Good, thank you. You noted our interest, so thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Freeman, what else tonight to discuss? I'll ask if anybody wants to discuss what we just received today, but again, I haven't looked through it. Our Amory Engineering, it's only 4 pages. We can talk about it if anyone wants to or got through any of it. I have not. Peter, what else or what's next?
Well, to answer both questions, that does conclude our presentation. I would just highlight one thing that I think Brandon said, and Paul had asked me. We communicated a few times. He's always very helpful between the 2 hearings. So we will also, after going through the peer review and everything else, in addition to the revised plans, at some point we will revise as necessary the waiver list. We don't think there's anything else other than what Brandon described tonight, but Paul was very helpful with that too. So we certainly, before we finish this hearing, will submit an updated waiver list, and that's it.
Okay. Other general questions from board members at this time, or Paul, with what we're doing before the next meeting? I mean, how do we push this forward? How do we move forward? We review our Amory engineers report, and hopefully have you folks review that and talk to us at the next meeting. Paul, is Amory, they're not present tonight, are they?
Yeah, Pat's here.
I'm sorry, that was Mr. Brennan. Why don't I go to Mr. Brennan then to take us through this briefly? I'll just confess that we haven't, digested it ourselves, but let me do that now. Mr. Brennan, do you want to capsulize maybe what is in your preliminary review?
Sure. I'll go through it real quickly. For the record, I'm Pat Brennan with Amory Engineers. I did the peer review for the zoning board on the project. The letter, as I said, it's just 4 pages. In general, I think that the applicant's team did a real nice job with the project. For a 40B project, it's a pretty complete submittal as far as the engineering goes. I had a couple of comments. I'll just run through my comments real quick. The first one's informational. The second one, Mr. Card has been talked about with the sidewalk link between this and the shopping center. My third comment was about the calculation of the open space. There's just some discrepancies between some of the documents they've submitted. It's not a big deal because no matter what, they're over the required minimum 35%. I had some questions on the survey plan. There's some monuments shown on there that aren't along the property line. I just wanted some additional information on why those discrepancies were there. They have that emergency fire access at the front of the site. And I'm not sure if the fire department's looked at the plan, but what we see on most of these projects is what they call an auto turn analysis. They take the fire department's largest apparatus and make sure it can maneuver around the site without any issues. So I was asking for them to provide that information. Also to consult with the fire department on whether a fire hydrant would be required on the site. Right now, there's a hydrant out in front of the proposed building on Mansfield Avenue, which they proposed to move to make that emergency access. It's a pretty deep building. It's a long, narrow lot. I don't know if fire department's going to want another hydrant somewhere on the site. Sometimes they do. There's been no information on exterior lighting, and I assume there will be in the parking lot to illuminate that. So I was requesting some photometric plans to make sure that there's not going to be any impacts on the adjacent property owners, or the adjacent properties. The dumpster screening detail, they're proposing a chain link fence, and the detail said optional slats. No slats in the chain link fence really doesn't do any screening, so just wanted to point that out. I just had a couple of recommendations on the specifications for the sidewalk and the pavement section. And then into the utilities, I did go through the stormwater report in great detail. There's a lot in there, but I do agree that they comply with your stormwater bylaw as far as the removal rates, the water quality issues, the TMDLs for phosphorus and that type of thing. I do know that there is an increase in the volume of runoff in the post-development condition, both for the overall site and to the design point to the reservoir. That the increase in runoff is all towards the reservoir. They are decreasing runoff, and this is volume of runoff, not rate. Rate, they're decreasing across the board. This is the volume of runoff. They are decreasing it to the north and south property, adjacent properties, as well as Mansfield Avenue, but that there is an increase in the reservoir. Volume of runoff is oftentimes an issue when receiving water is not a very large body of water, because you can impact the flooding in those bodies. With the size of that reservoir, I don't think it's, I wouldn't say that this is an issue, but I just wanted to raise, make the board aware that there is an increase in the volume, because that's one of the things that we often look at, is make sure that the rate and volume are not increasing the post-development condition.
Yeah, I thought on that issue alone, I thought it couldn't increase. I thought that was part of the regs. Is that not right, Judy? No?
I was under that impression as well, but I'm not an engineer. I have to defer to you, Pat.
Yeah,
You speak, but my understanding has always been it's the rate under the DEP, regs.
I see.
Yeah, the DEP regs regulate rate, but they do say increase in runoff. So it's kind of subjective. Some people will take volume, that to mean volume as well. And we typically look at volume. Many of the towns that we review for require volume mitigation as well as rate mitigation, because, like I said, the volume, when the discharge is to a small area, the volume can have a greater impact than the increase in rate of runoff.
What's the increase as a percentage? Do you know that yet, or have you not got?
Yeah, I do. I can tell you it. Give me a second here. Well, I'll go through I'll pull it up while I'm going through the other things.
Fine.
I just asked them to provide some information on the drainage, or the time it takes for the infiltration pond to drain. 72 hours is what's required. And I just asked them to include that information. Their total suspended solids removal calculation, they took 10% credit for street sweeping, which they don't meet that criteria. But I would say that even without the street sweeping, they meet the criteria in your stormwater bylaw for over 90% removal.
Okay.
I've asked for Yep, I'm sorry.
No, well, you were still looking for the percentage. I had a question on the fire. I forgot what was said last time. Did you review this with the fire department yet? Have they done that turning radius analysis or no?
Yeah, we've met with the fire department. I think we had 2 different staff level meetings, and we've gotten their specifications to their bigger apparatus and run the auto turn, so we can provide that.
Oh, yeah, I'd like to see that. That's always been we've always been very strong on that in town, making sure the fire department is comfortable. And what about the hydrant? Wasn't that mentioned last time too?
Yeah, so we spoke with the fire department about hydrants and about the access, and I can get some documentation from them. But they said because of proximity of the hydrant in Mansfield Avenue, they didn't require one on site, but I can get that. I can get a letter out of them.
Yeah, as long as it's being addressed, that's all we're asking for. Okay. Sure. Pat, were you able to find the runoff percentage?
Yeah. So the increase to that design point, which is the reservoir, during a 2-year storm, it's 154%. During a 10-year, it's 146, 138 during a 25-year, and 126% during a 100-year event.
So you're talking 140%, whereas 100% is normal?
100% is what's going there today. So it's 54% more than that. So yeah, that's what it is.
Isn't that to me, I'm not an engineer, but isn't that a significant percentage?
again, it would be if the receiving water wasn't so large. But when you put so during a 100-year event, the increase is about an acre foot. For talking purposes, let's just say that the reservoir is 100 acres. It's obviously larger than that, but over 100 acres, that increase would be less than a quarter of an inch of flooding in the reservoir. So it's like I said, because of the size of the reservoir, it's not going to impact flooding anywhere.
It kind of absorbs the impact, you're saying?
Yes, exactly. It spreads out over the area of that reservoir.
For volume, what about I mean, this is more Jennifer Carlino maybe, but what about for, pollutants or contaminants in that extra 50% extra water runoff to the reservoir? Just curious.
Yeah, well, the as far as the contaminants, they meet all the standards for taking out the contaminants.
I see.
This is the volume. It's just the way that it gets released. The stormwater that's being released, when you get to that point where you're releasing that volume of stormwater, you've already cleaned the water that's gone in there. You've already cleaned the first flush of rainfall that's come off the paved surfaces. That's where you pick up most of the contaminants. So this is over that. You've already met your standards as far as the water quality goes. So that the volume is not a concern when it comes to the water quality.
So the percentage might be what I would call a big number, but the effect is not so great in your estimation, at least right now, what you're saying.
That's correct. And I can take a quick peek at what the actual area of that reservoir is and give you an actual number of what that increase would be during the 100 years, just so you can quantify it and you can see what I mean by I really don't think it's going to be an issue.
I just thought you were going to say, it'll increase by 1% or 2% or something. When I heard 40, 46, 50, it was a concern, but I'm not a scientist. Other response members?
Yeah, if I could just talk briefly about it too, when
Go ahead.
We're looking at volume again, and like Mr. Brennan said, it's one way or the other. So, we've looked at it where you're trying to match volumes because you might be feeding a small wetland or something like that. So you obviously don't want to take all the water out of that wetland. But with bigger bodies of water, it's important to point out too that this water, we're talking about overland. So basically what happens today a lot and why there's that increase in volume, we match the rate. So the amount of water over a time period that's going to the reservoir is less or equal to what's there today. The volume's increasing because that water's being held back longer. So even though, if you can imagine that more water is eventually getting there overland, it's going at the same rate as it is today. So it's not getting like a big flush of water. But when we talk about volume too, it's important that, volume's more important on a watershed basis too. So all the water from the site today goes to the reservoir, whether it flows overland to the reservoir, whether it goes into the ground. It's getting to the reservoir. It might be getting there slower because under existing conditions, and why we have that volume increase is more water is infiltrated into the ground than in post conditions. So that's kind of feeding that aquifer that then gets to the reservoir. So in kind of a real high level, more water is getting there above ground than it is getting there today. But it would, if you look at the grand scheme of things, it's, when you have a site, we had a site where the front half of the site discharged to a drainage system in Mansfield Avenue and then got taken in a pipe network to another body of water. In that instance, you're actually taking that water from the Norton Reservoir and sending it somewhere else. All the water on site today and in post conditions is eventually getting to the reservoir. So it's not like we're adding more water to the reservoir in the kind of grand scheme of things. It's just more of the way it's getting there.
Okay.
In some ways, and it's the way things are modeled. It's the way the regulations require you to model things based on separation of groundwater and your infiltration rates that you can use as design lines and stuff like that. So it is kind of when you get to volume, it's a little more tough to nail down. I have found so, but I would agree that based on the scale of the reservoir and the amount of water we're taking, we can do that calc too. The impact is minimal, very minimal.
Other members, any questions or comments on that issue?
No.
Okay. Are we at a breaking point, Judy, do you sense?
Seems
Breaking
that way.
point till the next meeting, I mean.
I mean, yes, I understood your question, and it seems that way to me. Yes,
Peter, nothing else to review tonight?
unless there are any other people on the call who might want to speak. But
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I didn't interrupt.
I'll get there in a second. Pat, thank you for the quick summary. I think we're all going to be looking at it, including the applicant. So, we might have more questions going forward. You kind of rang the bell on sidewalks, fire turning and hydrant, and snow removal was the other aspect. Is that still not shown? That's not shown on the original plan?
I did not see it on the set of plans that I have.
No, we can add clarification on that.
Is not required? Eventually, I mean.
I don't know if it's on the actual plan checklist, but I mean it's typical. Most developments we show it. So we can add that detail, and we can explain how snow would be managed on the site.
Yeah, we paid attention to that before, because obviously you can't push it into the road on one side and you can't push it into the reservoir either. You got to do something or store it or remove it, or I thought that was in the regs, but maybe I'm wrong on that. I know we've addressed it before.
Yeah, and I mean, just a brief explanation. I mean, we can show areas on site where snow can be piled in shoulders and things like that on site. But with this type of development, it's similar to a commercial development. If we get a winter like we did a couple years, 5 or 6 years ago, whatever it was, when we got, all those March storms, these developments, you run out of a place to put snow and it ends up getting removed off site. Just, it's like if you have a small store with, 10 parking spaces, once your snow piles up enough to start impacting business and your operations, you have to pay to get out of there. So we can address that better in our response.
Okay. If there are no other issues that members want to raise, I think we're in order for a motion. Well, let me ask first, is there anybody in attendance from the public, abutters or not, attendance from the public, who wants to ask a question or make a brief comment about what was heard concerning this development tonight? I think I only see two people, in addition to people I can identify, and hearing no comments. Is there a comment or question from anybody? I don't see or hear anything. Then is there a motion to continue this hearing on this 40B application to, correct me, September 16th at say 7:05 p.m.?
Mr. Chairman, I can make the motion to continue this meeting until September 16th at 7:05 p.m.
Jim will second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. One other question, sorry, before we vote. Paul, what is with the rest of the peer review process concerning this development? Can you remind me where we are?
Well, we're needing the traffic assessment, and then we'll need to also, when the applicant submits their revised package, I'll have to get that to Pat as well and staff.
Okay.
So it might make sense for them to just give us that revised information that they will. Well, their traffic study won't change, and I've given that to Pat, so he's given that to the sub-consultant on it.
Yeah, okay. and I expect that review probably within a week.
Okay.
So we should have that pretty quickly.
And who is Jennifer using, Paul?
For Stormwater Chesia Consulting.
So we can look in on that ourselves, although it's not our purview, I guess, but we can answer some of the questions from that review, right?
Sure. Yes, absolutely. And Conservation Commission and the ZBA can absolutely coordinate together. In fact, I gave Pat's review to Jennifer, so she has it. So we're coordinating.
Yeah, and when we respond, we'll, basically include all the responses in the same letter. So, because I know there's probably some overlap on the stormwater comments, so we'll just make sure that they're all there so everybody kind of sees all the comments and responses.
So Amory is our engineering peer review and traffic, is that correct?
Engineering, stormwater, and traffic, but they've their traffic out.
Correct.
They've got is it Guillen Associates?
It's Gill and Associates.
Gillen, okay. Sorry, I put a little French on it, I guess.
Okay.
That doesn't come out pretty, but yeah.
So we're hoping to hear from them before the next meeting, correct?
All right, we'll coordinate on it. Yep.
Okay. That's where I was just asking where we were on it. Okay. Then there's a motion to continue to September 16th, 7:05. No further discussion on the motion. Mr. Wren, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Tenori, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Booley, you're good with that?
I am.
Okay, and Mr. Noel votes yes to continue as well. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Assistance with this tonight, and keep the communications going, Peter, and to the applicant and Judy as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you very much, all.
Thank
See
you.
4 weeks, I guess. Thanks. We'll go on to our next item on the agenda in just 1 second. Okay, this is, here we are. Next is the, on the agenda is the 40B comprehensive permit application for 253 Mansfield Ave. The applicant owner is 253 Reservoir LLC. Applicant seeking continuance to the September meeting. And for this, we have a letter from Paul Haverty, attorney Paul Haverty, I think.
Mhm. Yes.
Requesting the continuance. Members, I think you've seen that, although it was dated just a couple of days ago. But the applicant would like the opportunity, they're investigating potential alternatives to this site. So we're not sure whether this 40B is going forward. Paul, is there anything further?
Well, I don't, right now, I don't want to get into, I can't really get into a lot of details, but we will know by Monday if there has been an application for another type of development on this site. And I'll let you know if it comes in.
Do you know if that plan comes to fruition? Will that involve changes to the building, or we don't know that yet? Even?
Oh, I don't know. We wouldn't know that, but
okay. But it's not a 40B, so it's
no. Sorry,
it's
not.
It might nix this and take away all of our fun for the upcoming holidays.
It's possible. I mean, it's possible, but as I explained to the applicant, that we'll work with them regardless.
Of course,
there are for this particular project, there are a few different challenges they're going to have to overcome in order to move forward.
Right.
If they don't move forward on it, if they're unsuccessful, then we'll continue to see the 40B probably. And
just for the record, the last line of the letter is applicant agrees to extend the 180-day period for the board to complete the public hearing. Will of course provide additional extensions in the event that a loaner, I think it means later continuance. What is, I'm not sure that sentence makes sense, but in any event, the applicant is acknowledging that, they'll have to extend other deadlines. So at this point, I guess we should push this off to the September meeting as well, just so we can check in on it. I think, since Paul has indicated that we're expecting to know more anyway. Whether there's anything to do on this in the next meeting or not, remains to be seen, because the applicant's also asking us to hold off on securing peer review. Obviously, they just want to hold on this for just a few weeks. So Judy, we can vote to continue this to September 16, correct?
Yes, certainly. Yes.
Any other questions from members? Hearing none, is there a motion to continue this to September 16th at say 7:10?
Mr. Chairman, I can make the motion to continue 253 Mansfield 40B to September 16th at 7:15.
If that's where we are, sure, 7:15 is fine. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Mr. Wren, how do you vote on the motion?
I vote yes, Mr. Chairman.
Since you just made the motion, I figured.
Yeah, I don't usually go against that, so.
These formalities are silly, but we go through them anyway. Mr. Tenari, how do you vote?
Yes.
I'm not going to mess it up. I vote yes, as well as the continuance. Alan, sorry.
I'm present.
You're voting yes as well. Thank you. It is unanimous. We're 4 members of our 3-member board. So we will put it down on the agenda for then, Paul, if you can alert the applicant to that anyway. So, I mean, they're going to keep us updated anyway.
Right. And as soon as I know more, the end of early next week, I'll let you know what's happening and the process.
Yeah, I mean, we started the process, and it's up to the applicant whether they want to continue this process or not. So we'll hold on and see. Okay, thanks, Paul.
Tom,
We have 15 Hawthorne.
Yeah, no, I know. I wasn't
Oh,
going.
okay.
hey, real quick, I lost my mouse on my computer. I want to try something real quick. So if I lose you guys off the log back in, but hold on one second. Right?
Yeah, understood. We'll wait if we lose you.
I can't get my mouse to come up.
Do you need me to stay on?
I don't think so, Judy. Thank you very much.
Not a problem. Nice to see you all.
So you're not available on September 16? Was that it?
I don't know yet. I'm involved with the Amazon Logistics Center up in Hudson, New Hampshire, which has become a major controversy. So they asked me to hold that date. I should know in the next few days whether I need to be, on that meeting or here. If they don't need me, I'll be with you.
Okay. Well, yeah, keep us posted, please.
Yeah, 40Bs are easier than logistics centers.
Yeah, well, thanks for your help. Interesting. I grew up in Nashua, right next door to Hudson.
Oh, did you? I grew up in Hancock.
Huh.
Over in the Madmac region. Anyway.
That's why we're both so nice. We grew up in New Hampshire.
That's right. All right. Good night, guys.
Thanks, Judy.
See you later. Bye-bye.
And Tom, I can't get it to come back, but if I need to, it is what it is.
Oh, so you don't have a mouse?
No, but I'm on a Surface Pro, so I switched to tablet mode. So let me see.
Well, we can hear and see you. If we lose you, we'll call in or something even.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. So next on the agenda, we already voted to take from the table for further consideration the application of 15 Hawthorne. This is Mr. and Ms. Redmond. I'll ask again for the record, is the applicant here in any form, video, audio, or telephonically, to further their application and to answer any questions that the board has tonight? For the record, I don't see a response. I don't hear a response. It appears that it is just the board members, Mr. DiGiuseppe, Town of Norton Town Hall, and Nicole Salvo on the call, and the Norton Media Center on the conference at this point. So members, we had taken this up first in February. You recall from our prior meetings that Mr. Redmond, as close back as July, had said he did not want to be considered at a remote meeting. We said that we felt the need to go take this forward at our next meeting, which is tonight. Paul did communicate that to him. He responded a couple of ways, one of which was to first ask what further materials we were looking for. And I believe I asked Paul or Nicole simply to say, Mr. Redmond was the one who said he had further materials for us. So to give us what he had to give us that he wanted us to consider. I'll note that he did leave off or send in a packet of 6 or 7 pages. You all have that. Some of it we had already before us from other meetings. There might be a couple new pages there. I'm not sure. One I saw that was different. The mortgage plan was a different mortgage plan than actually had been used.
Correct.
But first, if we could talk generally, I note that Mr. Carmichael's not here tonight, Paul. I actually I was hoping to include him in this. We have the option of continuing this again. I did want Mr. Carmichael here. I didn't ask him specifically in the last few days if he was going to be attending. What do we do with this? Do we decide this tonight, review what's been submitted, or do we talk about it and then put it off again? It's up to the board. There's a structure there that, you know, the building inspector had cited last November as not just non-conforming, but not permitted. It hadn't been permitted, I mean, for, you know, for construction or erection there. You know, so I certainly don't want it to go on forever, but we can, you know, take it up at the next meeting if we feel we need to, or we can, let's start talking about it tonight. I've said enough. What do you members feel you want to do? I do want to go over what was submitted anyway, for the record. But go ahead. Please speak up.
I mean, I'll give my 2 cents first. I'll go first.
Yeah.
I think, quite frankly, if it was important enough, he'd be on it, you know, in this life of Zoom. I mean, I'm on Zoom calls all day long. Not to say it's not important to him, but I think he should at least either phone call in or Zoom in. You know, I don't know, or there's various ways he can be a part of this. Yeah. I want to say I want to move forward, but again, I see a reluctance of not having Chris Carmichael on, because part of the decision of his denial, you know what I mean, he kind of forced us to come to us. But it's gone on a long time, and now we've got new documents which are conflicting documents. So
yeah,
I'm torn.
Okay. For now, great. David, just briefly, how do you feel about, you know, proceeding or not?
Actually, I guess maybe there's a quick question to Paul. It is clear to Mr. Redmond that we could move forward tonight?
I'm sorry, David, could you repeat that?
Yeah, David, you're a little muffled.
It was very clear to the applicant that this matter could move forward tonight, correctly?
I've communicated that to him, that, you know, that the board has the ability to deny a request for a continuance and can act on it.
Okay. Right. So he knows he could be here tonight.
Yeah, we were pretty clear. I mean, I didn't communicate directly, but I saw the communications from Paul and or Nicole, and they said the board is planning to take this up at the next meeting, and he did submit something, so he knew, you know, the meeting was going forward, and but he's not here. I actually had a couple questions for the applicant. That's not a reason alone to continue it if he's not here. I'm just saying that I wanted to confirm a couple of things with Mr. Carmichael. We don't know Mr. Carmichael's availability in September. I mean, I assume, Paul.
I mean, yeah, I will. You know, I always keep these on his agenda, but I admit I didn't talk to him to ask him to be here tonight.
I thought he was going to be. I didn't affirmatively ask him though in an email like I had before. Yeah. So that's why I'm just hesitating a little bit. Alan?
Couple things. I think the first letter he sent, he stated he was going to seek legal advice or seek lawyers. We didn't get a letter from a lawyer, so whether he did that or not, we don't know. I believe Chris Carmichael was going to be my only question to him tonight. I don't believe he's going to issue a permit based on how it's built. I don't believe he can issue a permit.
Only if you approve it.
Correct. The way it's built currently, it's not constructed. Even if we approved it with the setback, it's not constructed properly. It does not have a 4-foot crosswalk.
Right.
So he wouldn't be able to permit the slab that's already there.
Well, I don't know that. I mean, Chris had talked about it's not thermally insulated. Is that what you're referring to?
Correct, right? Currently, it's built as a 6-inch slab. I mean, this isn't a zoning bylaw, this is building code. It's completely different. However, my understanding is even if we granted him the relief he's looking for, the way it is currently constructed, Chris is not going to be able to issue a building. I'm not putting words in Mr. Carmichael's mouth at all. I just believe that's what he referenced in one of our first meetings.
Yeah, and the letter says it's not thermal flooring or something like that.
Correct. It doesn't have a 4-foot frost wall.
Okay, that's a different terminology that I'm used to. I guess that's all. So my observations on the submission. Let me just get it out, just for the record. And
I actually question some of the stuff he sent in is being even valid.
Oh, go ahead.
So I mean, first, it starts with again. I'm using this as a tablet mode, so bear with me.
Oh yeah.
The letter. I mean, the letter. Obviously, that's fine. It is what it is. Are we able to accept the abutters? Those having no problem with it,
right?
Without being in person.
We've talked about that before. I mean, we can accept anything that we want for what it's worth, but I had the same problem that I may be hearing from you, that these are people who, I mean, it looks like a form letter that was done.
They just signed, right? I would question. I mean, I would want to know, did they really sign it? I have nothing to prove they didn't.
Right. No, that's
yeah.
Right. We've said that before, that we can. I mean, the rules, the bylaw says we can administer oaths and take testimony. This is not, legitimate legal testimony. If we want to accept it for what it is, we can, but that's up to us. Yeah, the people aren't here. We can't question them. But I looked on the map. One of them is on Reservoir in back of the subject property. In other words, to the rear of his property, if I'm making sense. The other one is on Reservoir about a block away. I mean, several lots away. It looks like the corner street of Reservoir and Lakeview, for the record. So it's not even one of the immediate abutters that we were or would be concerned about. So I'm not sure those are influential to me anyway, whether or not, we accept them. But then there are two. I'm sorry, Jim.
Go ahead. I think you're going to get to what I'm going to say anyway. So okay.
The two photographs that were submitted, that's apparently another property. It looks like.
Right. Yeah. All said as an example.
And I don't even know where that is. I don't know if that's, Norton or some other town, or. But without Mr. Redmond here, that's what I was going to ask him. Why are you submitting this? What is this showing us?
And then in the building application, he submits a building permit from 2003, dated 6/19/2003. And when I went through it, it's for a single-family home. It has nothing to do. It says nothing to do with a carport or a garage. What he built.
This, I think, Jim, we had said in February, and I went back and listened to it as he can. It's on the town, what's it called? YouTube.
Yeah.
I think we had talked about, we got into a discussion of, well, was the slab permitted? When was that? And Mr. Redmond said the slab, at first he said, was there, 6 years ago. It might have been more than 6 years. And we said, was that permitted? Did a third party pour that? How did they do that without? And Mr. Redmond said, I had permits for everything that I've done there. And what we said is, show us those. Apparently they're not in Mr. Carmichael, the building inspector's office, or tax assessor's office, wherever they would be. That's what we said. We said, show us what you have to show, how it ended up in this configuration. And this is the house building inspection application. Remember, there was a house there, and then he applied, apparently. I don't know that this is a building permit per se, maybe it is, to tear down the old house and build what's there now as what I'll call the new house. That's what this is about, Jim. Right. It actually references a 32 by 47 house, which is not what's there now.
Exactly.
So I don't know what effect this is supposed to have on our deliberations, and we can't ask Mr. Redmond because he's not here. Neither can I ask Chris Carmichael, what does this mean, or what could it mean? Because, Chris isn't with us tonight. That's exactly what I'm getting at. Is there context to these submissions that, in fairness, we should at least ask Chris about? That's my hesitation. Also, the mortgage inspection plan that was just submitted this week is a different one than the one Chris had relied on. This one is also from 2003, but it's from, it looks like 8/19. It looks like August 19 of 2003, and it's certified to First Federal, whereas the other one is January of 2003, and it's certified, for another bank's mortgage application. This one that was given to us this week has the old dwelling and the new dwelling on it. The one that Chris apparently acted on to say you can build a carport had only the old dwelling shown on it. We have that in our file. It's dated January 28th, I think it was, of 2003, and it's to a different bank, and it has just the old dwelling shown. So it was pre-construction, showing pre-construction of the new house, not post. That's the one on which Mr. Redmond told us, as I specifically asked, is that your marking? Did you put that 10/6 there, carport? And he said, yes, that's what I had at the time. I didn't know the dimensions. I just put that there. So there was no explanation how that turned into a much bigger construction or moved from 10.5 feet to 1 2/3 feet away from the property line. So there's a lot of confusion and conflicting records, Jim, as you're pointing out. Without the applicant, present, we can't ask them what we're supposed to make of this stuff. It's the applicant's duty to come forward, with testimony and materials, statements, at least in materials, on which we can act. I don't think he's done so. And I think the latest stuff, as Mr. Terrari points out, is conflicting with what had been submitted before. I have no problem, proceeding on that basis alone. I'm just wondering if anybody else wants to ask Mr. Carmichael anything, as I did. I wanted to ask Chris a couple of things about the original drawing, just to verify that's what he saw before him. I don't know that we did that at the last meeting. That was my understanding, that that's what he had, where the shed was hand drawn in, and it said 10/6 or something like that. I have it here.
Yeah,
So,
that's my understanding too. I think the one he had was where it was hand drawn, and we had some questions on, well, who drew that in, and
well, my notes say that Mr. Redmond, the applicant, said, yeah, I did that.
right, yeah, he answered that question, right? But that was
I think he did answer that, but I wanted to ask Chris, get Chris to affirm this is what he had when he said you can build a carport.
right.
But go ahead. Again, the first question is, do we review this stuff and take a vote, or do we put it off and ask Chris to attend in September?
I mean, I don't know. I could definitely be persuaded. Not that I could persuade is the right word, but I could move on this tonight, I feel.
David?
Yeah, I think I agree with Jim.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we have what we need. I mean, it's always nice for Mr. Carmichael here, obviously, but I kind of feel like we have what we need in front of us. I think we move forward.
Okay. Well, I mean, I've kind of stated the facts as I see them, that, what was submitted and that original plan. We need all of this to be part of the record, Nicole. So the document submission, part of the whatever decision we make, needs to spell out, mortgage inspection plan dated, with hand-drawn shed. And the documents that were submitted, this week have to be spelled out there, a packet submitted by applicant on whatever date it was.
I can take a good look at that. Paul does that on the planning board decisions, so I can use one of those for reference and make sure I'm very clear on what's attached.
Well, I'm just saying that we'll have to include all this in the decision as facts, but the facts as we spell them out and discuss them, even with the two letters from the neighbors, which I can accept as, statements for what they are, but they're not. One is for the back abutter and one is not for an abutter. And Mr. Redmond's not here to, tell us otherwise. It's also a form, I/we have no issue, with the date line to fill in the date. I don't know where the form comes from. Obviously, the applicant is saying he got some neighbors to sign these. I just don't find them to be persuasive, even for what they, purport to be. Testimony from these people, and we can't ask these people any questions about how far away they live. So I don't consider them to be persuasive. The mortgage inspection plan submitted this week, dated 8/19/03 to First Federal, shows both structures. This is a different mortgage inspection plan that was submitted to Mr. Carmichael when he wrote his first letter in November of 2019. And the application for plan review and building permit dated 6/19/03, which was also submitted this week. I'll just note for the record, shows a building setback front yard of 36 feet. On the right, setback side yard 71 feet, and on the left, 58 feet. I don't think that's even conforming to the plan that was submitted to us in January, showing the present location of the residence that was apparently constructed from this 03 building inspection application and permit, if it is a permit. And we've already noted that the one that Chris Carmichael acted on had just the old house pictured and the new shed drawn in different dimensions and showing it to be 10 feet off the property line. And I believe Mr. Redmond had told us at the time he just indicated that's where he intended to put it. Well, I'll note for the record that the slab, by Mr. Redmond's statement at our hearings this spring, slab was already there. It was there 6 or more years ago. He said that. So the fact that somebody came along and put this on the slab instead of 10 feet away is certainly the applicant's responsibility, not ours, not the building inspectors or anybody else's. If a third party did it, maybe Mr. Redmond has some recourse against the third party, but that's not our consideration. But again, the decision would note for the record that Mr. Redmond said the slab had been there for a number of years. And once he got a certified engineer out there to do a plot plan like Chris Carmichael requested, certified engineer had no problem finding it's 1.6 feet off of the side property line. Any of that could have been determined at any time in the last 6 years that the slab was there. So, what I think the members are observing is, I don't know that we've been presented with anything as to why a variance for the side yard or the front yard setback requested or apparently requested would satisfy the elements of the variance, which is that, the applicant has shown some hardship that owing to this land renders this a special special consideration, or that we should bend the rules in this case to say it's okay. I don't think that we could do that with the record that's been presented to us. In fact, everything in the record seems to say that the applicant just went ahead and did things without obtaining the proper either permits or assurances from a certified engineer. Again, we said, is there a permit for the slab? And I have in my notes that the applicant said, oh yeah, everything was permitted. And that's when we said, well, can you show us those? That did not come forward. So there's no permit here for the installation of that cement slab, whenever it was done, 6 years ago or more. And Mr. Carmichael had said, yes, that would have to have had a permit. And there was nothing in the building inspector's record showing that even the slab was permitted. So then that was compounded when sometime in 2019, the applicant erected this garage on top of that apparently non-permitted slab. And I don't think that the applicant has presented us with anything to sway us from any of those conclusions, or the apparent, conclusion that I'm going to suggest that this is not in line for a variance as to either front yard or side yard setback. This is an R60 zone, and for an accessory building, even the plan, the engineered plan that was done at the end of December, clearly notes on the plan what's required, under R60 for an accessory building, and it's simply not here. I'm just looking for that. Here it is. It notes right on the plan for an accessory building, front yard setback of 40 feet is required, side of 10 feet is required. This is 1.69 feet off the side and 31 feet, 31.27 feet from the front. And again, none of these dimensions or distances matches up even with the old application to put his new house up. Those dimensions and those drawings differ from what's there now. So we don't have anything that matches up with anything that's there at present, I think. And that's what we asked the applicant to show us. How did it get to be at this? How did these things get to be where they are now? And none of the numbers match up that I can see.
And I believe, Mr. Chairman, I think I did, and I recall asking him why he didn't come off that property line, the required setback, and I'm about 99% sure he said something about either a water line or a sewer line.
Yeah, he did.
In that driveway, so it led me to the conclusion that he knew what he was doing when he did it.
I had that same memory that he talked about underground lines of some sort. And at another point more recently, I said, why didn't you just push it back 10 feet again? He said, well, it would have been right over my driveway.
Right.
I remember that comment as well. So I agree. The applicant chose the slab, and the slab doesn't appear to have been permitted itself. So there's nothing more that we can really do to correct, the record that we asked the applicant to supply. Also, that the building is 24 by 26 when the original carport, shown to the building inspector was significantly less than that, 10 by 6. I mean, nothing here matches what was applied for at any time. And I'll note that though it's not on the plan of record from Charette Engineering from December 19th, which is what he did after Mr. Carmichael's November letter, it doesn't show the setback to the right-hand property line or to the southmost property line, which is something we always require. But if you just do the math, it's 53.5 feet from the left property line. Then the width of the house is either 39 feet or 40-something feet, depending on which, set of numbers you want to go by. And that's not shown on the Charette plan either. It still leaves off to the right something like 75 feet off to the right where the new metal carport or garage could have been located. So I think there's absolutely no hardship that's been shown here. He could have put it 10 feet off the property line and 40 feet from the front yard property line very easily, except that the slab was already there by his own statement to us. And he just didn't take any action relative to that. I mean, that summarizes my kind of findings of fact as to where we are. It started off with, building inspector's letter of November 19, and then came the charrette plan by Charrette Engineering, and then the building inspector followed up with that second letter, which noted that the charrette engineer drawing didn't correct the deficiencies in the first letter. So I'm not sure what else to do here, other than to suggest that the application be denied. I also would point out the application itself is not clear. All it says in very bare bones fashion is, date property acquired 4105, size of building on premises 24 by 26. That apparently refers to the newly placed, prefabbed garage. Proposed use of premises, garage. That's all it says. Grounds for variance, permit, or appeal. Use separate sheet if needed. It simply says side and front setback. So we're kind of left to figure out what that means. We've just gone through the parameters and the facts as we think we know them. Another issue here is that if permits had been present for what had gone on here before, this would be a pre-existing non-conforming use. So we don't even have an application asking for a extension under 1.5E for a pre-existing non-conforming use. Even if the variance were in line for grant, he'd still have to ask us for that finding. I just find that none of this was done according to the bylaw or the regulations, which we hold applicants to in the town. And we bend when we can, but nothing here is conforming, and the numbers don't even match up to what the applicant has asked Mr. Carmichael for within the last year. That's all the facts that I wanted to get out. The pictures that were submitted are of record. There's the picture of the slab without the garage there. There's another picture of the slab, a corner of the slab. Then there's the picture of the completed structure placed on the slab. And we don't have any, from the applicant, we didn't get any information concerning who did the slab, who constructed the slab. Whether that contractor, had any reason for putting it where he did. Then no papers for, who erected the garage on the slab or why. I think the applicant has to look for some other form of relief than what we can provide here. I don't think we can provide the relief that that they are asking for. I'd ask other members to, add what they think is appropriate by way of observation. Mr. Tenori, Mr. Wren, Mr. Booley.
If I was able to, I'd be making a motion to close the hearing at this point.
And Mr. Booley is the non-voting member tonight.
I'm close. I just wanted to give Dave a chance if he wanted to talk. I mean, I've already said my piece.
Yeah, I don't really have much to add, to be honest with you. I mean, it's, the facts are the facts at this point. I don't really know what we can do. I don't think we can, there's nothing that, in my mind, warrants giving a variance. I still think that'd be appropriate in this situation.
Do you two agree with the facts as I've stated them? Because I think I'm going to have to be fairly careful in making sure those facts are in the decision.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
do you have
I
any-
agree with the facts.
Any difference with the facts? I'm sorry.
No,
No, same here, Mr. Chairman. I don't have any, I believe you have it correct.
I think we're all in agreement with the history. And as I said, I actually went back and listened to the February hearing and, because I was thinking, gee, how did this proceed to this point? I think we have enough as well. I would entertain, let me ask for the record, seeing no new people in attendance at this meeting by conference, by telephone, camera, or otherwise, except for Mr. Wiggins, who has joined us again. Thank you, Peter. Is the applicant or any representative of the applicant for 15 Hawthorne present at the meeting? Hearing and seeing none. Paul, you have no indication, no phone calls or emails or text to your phone, correct?
No.
Okay.
Correct.
Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion to close the public hearing regarding 15 Hawthorne Street.
Jim will second.
Okay. Been a motion to close the hearing, which has been seconded. Mr. Wren, how do you vote on that motion to close the hearing?
I vote yes.
Mr. Tenori?
Yes.
Mr. Noel votes yes as well. Now, is there a motion to, again, the application is for variance, as I've stated it. It's not for anything else. It's not an appeal of the building inspector's decision either, for whatever that's worth. It's an application for variance for front and side yard setbacks, and that's all it says. Is there a motion to deny the variance, the application as stated, for the reasons that we've recited tonight?
I'll make a motion to deny the request for a variance based on the facts discussed this evening.
And of course, the documents that are in the records from.
Chair,
Yes.
I understand the motion. Oftentimes you state the motion in the positive that,
Must be stated.
well, I mean, right.
I remember David said that before. That seems a little awkward to me. Is that just from history with other boards, Paul, in the town and outside the town?
Right.
Mhm.
Yes.
The motion's always in the affirmative.
Okay.
Right. Because if you vote and you don't get obviously, if you get the votes, it's approved. If you don't, it's denied.
Okay, fine. And by the way, for a 3-member board under the bylaws of Massachusetts, it has to be the consent of a 3-member board, so it has to be unanimous, in fact. The statute says concurring votes of a 3-member board. So one no vote would nix it. So David, do you want to withdraw your motion and make a motion to approve the application for variance?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I will withdraw my motion. And I will make a new motion to approve the request for variance at 15 Hawthorne Road, pertaining to the placement of a slab.
Is there a second on that motion to withdraw the first motion and to approve the application as filed? Jim?
So a non-second. So if I don't second it though, right?
No, I'm asking you for a
Agreed
second.
on.
on the motion, which is to withdraw the first motion to deny and to substitute a motion to approve the application. Do you have a second on that?
I can second on that.
Okay. The motion's been made and seconded. So, well, the first part is to withdraw the first motion. Let's vote on that separately. Mr. Wren, do you vote in favor of withdrawing the first motion?
Yes, I vote to withdraw my motion.
And Mr. Tenori?
Yes.
And Mr. Noel votes yes to withdraw the motion. The second part of the motion is to approve the application for variance relief as submitted. And that's been seconded by Mr. Tenori. Mr. Wren, how do you vote on the motion to approve?
I vote no, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Tenori?
I vote no.
And I vote no as well. Mr. Noel votes no. So the effect is that the application is denied. For the reasons stated tonight and the documents that are in the record, we will draft a decision. Ms. Salvo, if you can get the bones of a decision to us on that, in the next few days, that would be great. Try to include as many of the documents by name as you can, specifying the dates as we, talked about them. And it really is helpful sometimes to go back and listen to the town media center, recording of this to get those details. But we'll turn it around and issue that decision as quickly as possible so it can be posted, within the 14 days.
Okay.
Thank you, Nicole.
Of course.
And obviously, Paul, if Mr. Redmond contacts you, verbally, you can tell him what occurred, but we'll have the decision done as soon as we can.
Yeah, we'll have to let him know. We'll email him tomorrow.
Okay. Where's my agenda? Hey, we're done.
Did you all want to add an October date? Oh, November, I'm sorry.
Yeah, why don't we look to do that now? So we have September 16, followed by October 14, correct?
Correct.
Yep.
So 4 weeks after that would be November 11. That's too close to, that may be too close to the election for me. The 18th would be 5 weeks. I guess that's a week before Thanksgiving.
And the 11th's Veterans Day.
Well, isn't it always celebrated on the Monday though?
Great question.
Or is that the one that's always on the 11th?
That's always on the 11th. I'm
Yeah,
sorry, 'cause that used to be Armistice Day.
11th of 11th of 11th, right?
Right.
Okay, so is Thanksgiving the 26th, not the 19th?
It is.
26th, yeah.
So is the 18th okay for a November meeting?
Works for me.
Yep.
Okay. We can at least have those lined up. And if something comes up that we have to schedule another meeting in between, we'll do that. But I think the schedule's pretty good for our needs for right now. Next is bills and warrants. I signed something and dropped it off a couple of weeks ago. Nicole got that. Was there another one, Nicole, that you emailed me?
The only, did we handle the reimbursement for Paul? I think we emailed you. I think I emailed you that. Did we take care of that?
But that's not in the packets, is it? Hold on.
I don't know. I have this weird thought in my head that I had emailed it to you.
I think you did last week email me something, but I didn't see it in the Dropbox, and I never went
I
back.
didn't scan it because it was I scanned it because Paul had like a literal receipt, like you would get a CVS, so I had to scan it on paper. I had to put it on paper, tape it, and scan it that way.
Oh, post office.
Post office, yeah. Is that
Yeah.
what I sent to you, Tom? Did I not? I might not have put that in Dropbox. I
Here are
think-
the bills payable, copy of payment to the post office by Paul.
yeah.
This will be on next week's agenda. Don't you have to do a form warrant though? I don't think we could just vote on this. Don't you have to have it?
I have a reimbursement form, but that's just it just gets submitted in the packet. You would
Okay, but the other members don't have it. I mean, we could pass it around now. Can you?
you know what? You're totally right. I did. I only sent it to you, huh?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Exactly. It's not an.
I think I can pull. I can try to pull up my VPN. Give me 1 second.
Well, I've got the email right here. I guess I can forward it now. Try to forward it now.
If they're attachments, can you put them on your screen? I can try to.
If I knew how.
All right.
I don't even have a mouse, so I can't do anything with my computer.
Let me try this.
Stuff to work on my phone.
It's
Let
for
me-
the bill
let
was
me-
for $9.20, I believe.
Yeah, no, I'm not. I mean, we want to pay Paul his $9 so he can eat a sandwich tomorrow, but
Paul, I'll give you $10.
it has to be,
Yep, Tom. Let me just see if I can.
kosher sandwich. I mean, a kosher bill. Let me. I'm trying to forward this to everybody. How do I do it for this?
Yeah, and this was just we had to go. This was for mailing the hard copy of one of the 40Bs to Judy.
Tom, are you able to forward it, or do you want me to? I have it right here.
Oh, forward it to the group. Sure. Can the group open it? Jim can. Jim can scroll with his fingers.
I'm working off I'll work on that off my phone.
All right, give me 1 second. I'm doing it now.
Yeah.
I'm gonna deny it.
Yeah, Paul could lose a little weight.
Yes, I could.
I was joking. I'm sorry.
No, that's
Yeah.
a fact.
That was a complete
Sounds in-
sarcasm.
Town's in financial hardship.
Well, I do work for the town, so there is a financial hardship.
Yeah.
But I work for the love.
Oh,
All right, I got it.
you get love there. Let us know. We might, drop by.
It is a great place to work.
He said officially on the record.
Yep. But after having my car take suspension issues deal with my car, any money I can make is helpful.
Oh,
Or in this case, I'm not making, I'm just getting back.
Yeah, I added steering wheel fluid this morning to my car. I'm hoping when I go out, the fluid is not in the parking lot of my office.
I was reviewing the invoice there, Paul, and I noticed it said chip on the bottom. I said, oh my God, you got a bag of chips. But I guess it's the chip card, so I guess you're okay.
What does this say, chip?
There's chip
Just
on the,
first class
on
mail.
the invoice, on the credit card receipt.
Are we paying
Not
for
a problem
potato
with the
chips?
clerk added the chips to my receipt.
With the chip card, so he's okay.
I thought we were paying for potato chips. I'm
No,
getting
no, I
hungry.
thought that first too.
Getting hungry talking about all these.
I thought he might have added it to the bill.
So, Paul, there's no town card that you can just take for 5 minutes and sign out.
Well, Judy, this was to deliver to Judy. And yeah, she's more than 5 minutes away.
No, but you just had to get your own card.
No, we just dropped it off at the I mean, we were just, if she had been closer, we would have just driven it, but
No, I'm asking if isn't there a town card that you can use, instead of your own personal card?
no, towns can't have credit cards.
Ah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Right. So yeah, we get reimbursed we have to spend a lot often on our own card and then just get reimbursed.
Okay. So,
Paul, don't feel bad. Same with the government.
It's all part of it. It's no different than anywhere else. We've had credit cards in other places I've worked, and I just said, nah, never mind. It's not worth the hassle. Just go with the reimbursement. But here we do not. And my understanding is municipalities in Massachusetts can't have credit cards.
I think I've heard that before now that you say it. And you don't want to keep like $100 in cash sitting around on the desk at the zoning board, right?
$100? Who is that? That kind of money.
Yeah, I know. Okay, I'll assume that the members are seeing the bills.
Yes.
For the record, there's a schedule of departmental bills payable, $9.20 to Paul DiGiuseppe, whoever he is, with a receipt attached. Is there a motion to approve this disbursement to send on to whomever to write a check to pay?
I will make that motion to approve this bill. Paid.
In the whole amount? Should we do
Well, I
that?
think I was deducting the check box, but we'll go the whole thing.
The whole amount? Okay.
Hope we don't have to do an override because of it.
I probably give him $10 actually. To get
They did spend gas money to get there. I don't see
Yeah.
travel reimbursement.
Jim, is there a second on that motion to pay the whole $920?
Jim will make the second motion. Okay,
No further discussion. Paul is looking for his money. Mr. Wren, how do you vote?
After careful deliberation, I'm going to say yes.
Mr. Tenore?
yes.
Alan wishes he could object and vote no, but I vote yes as well. Paul, congratulations. So I have to sign this and drop it off or mail it or something, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, we have, it's not DocuSign, but the town now has a digital signature.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Well, but when I scan it, do they put up a stink when I PDF things to you still? I mean, it's legal in Massachusetts. The state law says electronic signatures are valid as long as, you can prove that I signed it. That's the whole point. Can you prove it later if it ever comes into question? So
Well, and now we've passed it as a policy.
Oh, you have?
Right.
Okay.
The select board did.
Right. That's I forgot that as well. So I'll just sign this and PDF it to you first thing in the morning. Okay?
Okay.
If you want it right now, I'll do it now.
We won't be processing it right now.
I'll do it in the morning. There are no minutes here, right, to look at?
None that I saw.
And we need minutes from our last July meeting.
Did I not send? Didn't I send you all the minutes?
Boy.
I'm all thrown off because we had like no computers last week, so I barely even know who I am right now. But I could have sworn you and I made sure we were caught up.
Well,
and everything kind of fell off, so I should have checked it today with you, and I just didn't.
I don't know. I'm gonna have to go back and look. I haven't even looked at them if you did. Oh.
Because they were short. The last minutes were pretty darn short. So
July 29 minutes. But again, I didn't see them. You have to put them in the Dropbox, okay?
Got it. Well, I just wait till I confirm with you, and so.
Oh.
But I gotcha. I'll throw them in there anyway. So even if maybe I don't hear back from you, they'll at least be.
Yeah, they're draft July 29 minutes. I don't know about the earlier meetings.
I think we're all taken care of for the other ones.
Okay. Because I remember talking about that. Are we caught up? And you said, "Oh, it's okay. The office is, the clerk's office is so tied up anyway." But okay, yeah, I will do this next time.
Okay, no problem. And I'll throw it in there just to make sure that.
Yeah.
All right.
Apparently I was mixed up last week too, or 2 weeks ago. Okay. Anything else to come before us?
I guess, Chair, just one point along the lines Nicole just reminded me with the, our system, our server was hacked last week. So one of the things that's coming out of this is we will be going to a probably monthly change of passwords. So if you're getting a message that your password's not being recognized, you need to update it, and then be mindful that probably every month we're all going to have to update our passwords.
Okay. The strange thing is, remember back in July, my browser was telling me there was a problem with it, and I had to go to another browser just to get in, remember? And
Yeah.
You had that problem, and the guy, what's his name, had said that the security certificate hadn't been updated for a while. That's why Google was recognizing that and it would let me in, but I'd have to jump through hoops, and then it was not all functional. But yeah, reset your passwords. I mean, I assume we've all done that in the last few days. So okay.
But I will mention when you go to do it, that warning you're referring to, you still get that warning. I got it in my office today.
Really?
Yeah.
And you updated your password?
I was on the way of doing that, and I got this warning saying, don't go here if you want to not put your whole company at risk here.
What browser?
Security. Yeah, we all seem to be getting that.
What browser, David?
That would have been Chrome.
Yeah, that's what I was getting, and I haven't tried it. I mean, I could try it right now on Chrome, but I had to switch over. I had to actually download the old Microsoft Explorer, because they call it Edge now or something. But I had to find the old Explorer, and it works on Explorer fine. Although it gave me that message, it's not giving me that anymore. But on Chrome, let's see. We don't have to resolve this right now. He's tired. Let me see on Chrome.
But if you all continue to have that problem, just let me know, and I'll reach out to our IT folks.
I'm still having it. Even tonight, I'm having problems with it.
Okay.
No matter what I try.
Okay.
I can get into the email, and I click a couple times, and it freezes.
Right.
And I get it again, and
yeah, exactly.
It's barely working.
Okay.
And then on my phone, I do it on my phone. I don't ever use it because I'm never, and it's not even, I haven't asked me to change passwords yet. So
It hasn't asked me either to change password.
yeah.
But I don't think it'll ask you if you're probably like me and you just get your emails on your phone.
Right.
I don't think it will ask you there. So they talk about the next time you sign into, Microsoft.
Right.
But if you never sign in, I'm not really so sure everything is profit, quite frankly. There
are two ways of getting the email. I'm talking about, I go to webmail. So I'm on the internet, and I'm going to the town's webmail site.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what Alan's describing too. On a browser, if you provision the email as one of your accounts, that automatically gets mixed in with your other email. I think that's different. And I tried it a year ago when this came out, and I couldn't get it to work that way. So I just keep going to the browser. And it's the browsers that are signaling that there's a problem with it. Maybe they're right.
Yeah, I'll check with IT.
All right.
On that note, I wasn't keeping track of the video thing we were supposed to do this week. Is that ixnayed now? Or
I think we're at a point where we're too late. This
Yeah.
is for the new zoning district when Alan was on the subcommittee.
Oh.
Yeah, we were hoping to do a video, but I think the communication problem, people weren't getting emails. We were trying to do an educational video, a short one, in it prior to town meeting. So I guess unless we were able to do one late this week, early next week, and get it out. I mean, I guess it's possible, but I haven't heard from anybody.
Yeah, I tried to log in today and it was the first time I saw a list of you talking about it.
When is town meeting?
August 29th, Saturday at the football stadium at 9 a.m. And it's primarily the zoning bylaw changes, which the village center that Alan helped us out with, and marijuana bylaw.
Right.
I want to do that.
There's a public meeting afterwards, by the way, for the charter commission also. If you have any questions regarding the charter, so.
What's the deadline? What's the deadline that's coming up maybe tomorrow for marijuana applications, Paul?
It's Monday. So
why is there a deadline for applications? I didn't remember that.
well, what we're doing is this ultimately will be the selection of up to two host community agreements that the town would enter into, that the board, the select board would enter into, to allow for two retailers to go forward.
Yep.
So they've set that deadline so that way they can start that process. But we're limited by state law to, I believe it's 20% of your liquor retail liquor store licenses, and we have 10 or 11.
We do.
So, yeah, and so we could go for two. So this has really been driven by the Economic Development Commission or Committee. So, but Monday's the deadline, and then when we get these applications in on Monday, we will. So the Economic Development Committee, myself and the town manager will be on a subcommittee reviewing these applications, scoring them, and then that gets moved to the select board for them to ultimately decide which to go forward.
So are there applications submitted yet?
I don't know. There wasn't. I wasn't in the office today. Yesterday we hadn't received any, but not that I'm aware of. But we're expecting a handful to come in.
I just didn't understand that there was a deadline. I thought it was an open process, and whoever applies first, maybe get us in first.
This was the process that the EDC chose to work with.
Okay.
So,
and the select board is looking to expand the parameters of where a marijuana distributor can put his retail spot, correct?
You're right, compared to what we have in the plant, in the bylaw now, because it's just industrial zoning, and they added not all commercially zoned areas, but they have they've created an overlay district that would then be applied in certain areas of town.
That's also a town meeting. Right?
That's a town meeting. Yep.
Yeah, that's the big one at town meeting.
And that's where is that online? I think you had sent it to us before.
You can actually go. We have a link right on the planning board website, and then I know Nicole had set up. I think Nicole, does the Economic Development Committee has their website now, or no?
It looks like started one, but you can find all that information on our department page, on the zoning board page, and on the planning board page. It's all marijuana overlay.
I think you had sent it to us a few months ago, and I looked at it, but I wanted to save it. Okay.
And the warrant language should be posted on the town clerk at the town clerk's website.
Yep. Okay.
I think the warrant language is actually linked in with the marijuana stuff. I think Renee had me link it in there. Actually, Paul.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else?
Tom, I had a quick question, just procedurally. When you have these 40B meetings, multiple meetings, what is the procedure if one of us miss a meeting? Like we miss a meeting, what is that?
As I understand it, you're allowed to miss one 40B meeting, but we then provide you with a recording and you sign a one paragraph statement that you've listened to the recording and before the next meeting, you've listened to the one that you missed and you swear that you've listened to it and you're ready to be tested. I mean, I think that's it, Paul, yes?
Right. We would provide you with the form, and then you would then give it back to us, and then we would give it to the clerk so it's recorded.
But I think it's only I think you can only do that for one meeting.
One meeting. Right. You can only miss one and watch it. If you miss a second one, then you're off any of those cases that you've missed 2 or more meetings for.
I see. So the first one you can kind of get a pass on, and then if you miss
You'll have to
one,
watch it.
Yeah. And then you have 2
The
more after
second
that.
one
Or
is
one
not,
more.
yeah.
I'm kind of asking because I'm actually not feeling that great today, and it's debating not coming tonight, and then but I wasn't quite sure what that meant with the 40B. So
Yeah. You could have watched the meeting or listened to it later and signed this form, but that would have been your one miss.
I want to pass, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So then you get your pass, assuming you watch the meeting, and then you can miss one more, and then you can't. Then that's it. No.
Then it would be down to 3 of us. I think last time we had a member who was disqualified because he had to miss a second one. And then I think I asked Alana, who was our town council at the time, what happens if somebody else misses? And I think she said, you actually can proceed with just 2 members voting, which I didn't really want to do, because it's less sharing of responsibility and all that. But this 40B seems to be going fairly quickly and smoothly, I've got to say. And that's in part due to, Paul and Nicole being with it and knowing what to do to hustle it along. Well, to let the applicant hustle it along. You heard tonight, Peter Freeman, well, we prefer 4 weeks, not 5 weeks, because that, keeps us on a faster track. I mean, that's what the applicants, they want to get. They spend money every time they come. So, they want to get it done. But this one, I mean, compared to others, this is moving fairly rapidly. It's a little cleaner than other processes have been. And often, I mean, we've had 20, 30 people show up at a meeting, oh, we don't want this. And, for all kinds of reasons, some of which are understandable and some of which are not. And it hasn't happened here. Of course, this is first time we've done video meetings instead. So hopefully, we'll be through this in a matter of several more meetings, a few more meetings. But
Hey, Tom, I just wanted to point out real quick, we are getting into hurricane season. So if for some reason I get deployed, I'll email you. But I would assume if I get deployed, I will not be able to attend at all. So just FYI.
Yeah.
But at least you have a better option of participating now.
Wherever I go, I won't be participating.
Yeah, I know. You'll be working all day.
Right.
Jim can wear his flowered shirt. It'll be Jim from Puerto Rico,
That's it.
Jim from the Bahamas or something in his flowered shirt. Okay. Anything else, or are we all set?
Set.
I'm all set. Thank you.
Peter Wiggins, thank you for attending and keeping us honest. All right. Is there a motion to adjourn at 9:28?
I'll make a motion to adjourn at 9:28.
Joe second.
David, hope you feel better.
Thank you.
How do you
Got a little fever coming out.
Ooh, hope you're better.
Today's was scary.
David, how do you vote on the motion to adjourn?
I vote yes.
Mr. Tenore?
Yes.
Mr. Booley?
Absolutely.
Mr. Noel? Yes, absolutely. Double. Thanks, everyone. Making progress.
All right.